Wow, what just happened in the NFL? Travis Frederick just announced his retirement 5 seconds ago. I just got the tweet. Quinton Dunbar has been traded to the Seattle Seahawks after a couple of days of really nothing going on. All of a sudden, the NFL ramps back up again. Jimmy Smith announced that he's going back to the Ravens. So we do have some things here to talk about. Thought I would go live and break it down for you. So let's start off with the big trade, and let me know, guys, what you think of the trade, Quinton Dunbar to the Seattle Seahawks, in the comment section below. Before I do break down everything going on in the NFL right now here live and break down what I think of this Quinton Dunbar trade to the Seahawks, make sure that you do spike the like button, and of course, if you are new, subscribe to The Bottom Line View for more NFL videos and live content just like this. All right, guys, so Quinton Dunbar, cornerback, traded to the Seattle Seahawks. Dunbar asked for a trade earlier this offseason, so it wasn't surprising to see that he was traded. But I do think that he's found a home in Seattle that I think is going to fit his skill set well, and this is a team that really did need some players in the secondary coming into the offseason. They've been relatively quiet in free agency, in the trade market, and maybe now Seattle is finally taking a look at some of the guys that they could target, sign, and ultimately acquire for their roster. Still, one of them is out there in Jadeveon Clowney. Whether or not they re-sign him or not, that's probably going to be the next thing we hear from Seattle. But before they even do that, they have helped their secondary with a corner in Quinton Dunbar. Now, Dunbar, last season, ranked as PFF's number 2 corner in football. He received an 87.6 grade and an 89 coverage grade, which was the second best grade of any player in football, only behind Richard Sherman. His total snaps were lower, though, so you have to keep that into perspective than a lot of the number 1 corners in the league. He only played 613 snaps compared to Marcus Peters, who played 944. Some of these corners, like Stephon Gilmore, playing nearly 1,000, and Richard Sherman playing 1,000. So these number 1 type of guys play more snaps. But Dunbar certainly last year had a breakout season, and he'll be a great addition to this secondary. And I think a corner that the Redskins, they're moving in a different direction with their defense because Ron Rivera is there. Ron Rivera wants specific types of corners, and Dunbar he said his displeasure with the team, with the franchise, and with where they were at, probably financially as well with his contract. So before Rivera even had an opportunity to say, hey, whoa, hold up, can I convince you to stay? It looked like Dunbar was already on his way out. So he is 27 years old, and last season he had 4 interceptions. He played 11 games, which is why his snaps were lower. I didn't bring that up, but that's a big reason. 4 interceptions, which was a career high. He had 8 passes defense, 37 tackles, and according to the advanced statistics, he allowed a 100 passer rating, but that was the year before. 60% completion percentage, which is 6 better than in 2018. And he drastically improved in terms of his passer rating. The 100 passer rating was from 2018. Last year, he only allowed a 68.4 passer rating and 6.8 yards per target. On all of this, the entire season, he allowed 376 yards in 11 games. Now compare that to his play in 2018, where he allowed 367 yards in only 7 games. So part of the problem with Quinton Dunbar has been, teams don't really feel like maybe he's worth the money or re-signing long-term because of the injury history. He's never played a 16-game season. The most he's ever played was 15 in 2017. But when he has played for the most part, he's shown his ability, especially last year where he developed, right? He's 27, so he's right about in his prime, and that's a big year for corners. I kind of feel like corners, they develop mostly as they get into their later 20s, like 26 to 31 is like the prime for corners, because you have to learn in the NFL when you're a corner. You have to be able to learn the tendencies of quarterbacks in the league. You have to study receivers and how they play and how they try and beat you. And then you have to basically be comfortable with your defensive system enough to know it like the back of your hand and not have to worry about thinking while you're playing. A lot of that is, can hurt a younger player. So for Quinton Dunbar, he had a great last season, and he hopes to bring that over to Seattle this year. When looking at Seattle, where I do expect him to play is primarily in the slot. That's a position where they really haven't had anyone. I know that they did play Diggs occasionally late last season in the slot, so I'm not sure exactly what their plans are, but when you look at the nickel defense of Seattle, they're probably going to have him in the slot, and they might even have him start on the outside in the 2 corner sets when they go with 3 linebackers or with bigger people on the field. So looking at their secondary, they had Trey Flowers starting opposite Shaquille Griffin. Griffin's still going to be one of their starters. There's no doubt about that. And usually with Seattle's corners, they play a side. So Griffin will always play one side of the field, and Flowers would always play the other. Now you throw Dunbar into the mix. Potentially, he could take snaps away from Trey Flowers if he doesn't improve his play down the stretch or into this season. So Quandre Diggs is there as one of the safeties. I've heard that they want to maybe move one of their safeties this offseason, get some picks back for them. I think it was McDougal, but I'm not sure exactly which one it was. I would actually have to research that. So any Seahawks fans here live, let me know who that was. But I do remember seeing a report that they were moving or shopping one of their safeties. And I do feel like their safety position is a little weak. But allowing Diggs now to play more of that free safety, deep safety role in Seattle's defense, and then adding another corner so that he doesn't have the responsibilities of playing the slot, will open up the entire defense and will kind of affect the entire secondary. So I really like this trade. I thought coming into this offseason that there was a massive need for Seattle at the corner position, and they've definitely addressed it here with Dunbar, who is one of the best corners play for play in the NFL. So I like it overall. Now, there was another trade that kind of interjected or started this trade, so to speak, and that was Kyle Allen being traded to the Washington Redskins. Kyle Allen was traded for, and the Seahawks fans are telling me it was Tedrick Thompson who's on the block or marketed. So we'll have to see if they move him now that they've added another corner to the mix. So now they're going to have those 3 corners, which I actually do like Flowers quite a bit. Like, I like what he brings to the table because he's tall, he's long, he's big, he kind of fits that system very well. Actually, going back to, before we get into that trade with Kyle Allen, going back to some of the PFF grades and how they kind of graded them. So basically, Flowers and Griffin, and this is interesting, their snaps were almost identical. I mean, Flowers played like 60 more snaps than Griffin did. He played 1,100 snaps, which has to be near the league lead. Griffin played 1,000 snaps, and Griffin was significantly graded higher. He graded 10th. Flowers ranked 102nd. So PFF grades aren't everything, but they do give you kind of a level in some cases. When looking at the snaps, though, I want to see where he actually graded. He must have been in the in the snap department. He was in the top 5-ish. So Logan Ryan had the most snaps in the league. Ward was second. Jari Alexander was third. Murphy of the Cardinals was fourth. Brashard Breeland was fifth. And then Trey Flowers was sixth. That's 30 plus more snaps than Richard Sherman. That's more snaps than Kyle Fuller, Joe Hayden, Griffin himself, Chris Harris, Marcus Peters, Bradbury, White, Humphrey, Gilmore, all of these guys. So Flowers played a huge role last year, and according to PFF, he was one of the worst in terms of playing a lot of snaps, but his grade was bad. And I think where really Flowers lacks is his ability to play man-to-man. I think that's where Dunbar would be more of an upgrade in that department, is his ability to play man-on-man in man situations, where let's say Seattle, they want to play a little cover one or cover one man with one safety deep. Usually it's a robber over the middle, and then you have corners just straight up man-to-man on the outside. That allows you to, it's more like forcing an offense to actually make a play physically more so than just scheming up a play. Like a lot of the times when you play the Rams, for example, Sean McVay is excellent, or Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. The only way to really beat them on 3rd and 5 or less is to be able to just outplay them and out-physical them at the line of scrimmage and just beat the corner wins the matchup versus the receiver. And that's where man-on-man kind of becomes a factor. But when Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay are able to study your tape, understand your defense, understand what zone coverage you're going to play in this situation on this down. They have a million different plays open to be able to expose that zone coverage, which makes it very hard on your defense to actually cover and make a play, if that makes sense. So I do think Dunbar, in a way, does add a little bit of a dimension there to this defense in terms of playing a little bit more man and allowing them the flexibility and versatility to do that. So now, getting to the other move that I felt was obviously important to this one was Kyle Allen. And I was actually going to make a video about this before I even heard about this trade. But Kyle Allen has been traded. You would know him as the quarterback from Carolina. He was traded to the Washington Redskins. And the Panthers, I'm trying to think. So Washington gave a 5th-round pick to Carolina for Kyle Allen. So Kyle Allen went to the Washington Redskins for a 5th-round pick. Dunbar goes to Seattle for a 5th-round pick. So essentially, for Washington, the trade was Kyle Allen for Dunbar, essentially, right? So to me, if I'm a Redskins fan, if I'm a Washington fan, I'm a little upset there because I feel like Dunbar probably should have gotten more than Kyle Allen. But there's a couple things here. One, Dunbar, they had no leverage because he kind of wanted to be traded, and he asked to be traded. 2, Kyle Allen is a quarterback. And 3, Dunbar's injury history and the fact that he didn't really play 16 games last year does hurt the fact and the trade value there. So, and Allen, in some spots, did look okay. He went 5-7 as a starter. He had 17 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, and over 3,000 yards passing. Allen had some games early in the year where he wasn't bad. He actually looked like a decent high-end backup. But as the season continued to wear on, and as defenses continued to study the tape of him, they noticed that he really isn't physically that gifted. And really, he wasn't capable of making many plays outside of what the system and Norv Turner was able to draw up for him. So, plus, Carolina, they're looking at a new system. They're looking at a new offense. They've brought in Brady to establish this new offense. And not Tom Brady, by the way. LSU's Brady. But Kyle Allen, he is going to be probably just a guy that's going to be the primary backup because they lost Case Keenum this offseason. Case Keenum left. Case Keenum went to the Browns. So they needed a backup. They needed someone competent because, of course, Haskins has a lot of question marks. And also, I think Kyle Allen is young enough. He's only 23 going on 24 for the fact where, okay, you know, he could be a threat to the starting position of Haskins to the point where he would have to push himself to win that job. And even Ron Rivera could frame it in training camp to the point of, hey, we traded for this Kyle Allen guy. This is an actual competition, Haskins. We're not just giving you the job. So he's a legitimate enough threat to the point where Haskins will have to work harder to maintain that job. I would say even more so than a guy like Case Keenum, who's basically an older version, probably better than Kyle Allen, but an older version, not really as a threat as a franchise guy. While Kyle Allen, maybe he continues to develop, all of a sudden, maybe he's a better player. You never know. But Rivera knows him, obviously. He coached him in Carolina for 2 seasons. So there's that there, and I do think he probably likes him as a guy. He likes him as a locker room presence. Maybe he feels like he could get the best out of Haskins, and he would be a good backup to Haskins, potentially early in the season, helping him prepare, helping him get ready. Maybe a little bit of a peer-to-peer sort of competition, but also a little bit of leadership in there as well. So, because everything I've heard is that Kyle Allen is a good dude. He's just not like built to be a franchise quarterback, and that's why they liked him as their backup there in Carolina. And then also for Carolina, I think there's a couple things why they traded Kyle Allen. First is, I think fans kind of got sick of him last year after his losing streak that he had. And then after that, there's a new offense, and they brought in Teddy Bridgewater, and they signed PJ Walker from the XFL, who's a player that also worked in the past with their coaching staff. So they like their quarterbacks in their building, and they feel like they better fit their offense than Kyle Allen does. So Kyle Allen looked like he was going to be on the way out. They still have Will Grier there, who's a rookie that they drafted last season, and we'll have to see how he fits into the offense. But overall, Kyle Allen to the Redskins, Dunbar to the Seahawks. I like the move mostly for Seattle. I think they're the big winner out of all of these moves. I don't mind that Washington got a backup to bring competition to their team and their training camp and their offseason for Haskins. But I also would have preferred that maybe they would have traded for Cam Newton. I don't know. I thought it was a different Panthers quarterback that I was hoping the Redskins would trade for. Because honestly, I'm not sure I'm the biggest Haskins guy in the world going into the season. And all I've heard from him is bad things. Like off the field in terms of preparation, in terms of work ethic. All of those things, those rumors are leaking out. And I feel like there's a reason for that. I also feel like the Redskins, I want them to have a spark on their team, and I feel like Cam Newton would provide that, along with the fact that Ron Rivera knows him. And almost that kind of makes me think that there's a couple things going on here. First and foremost, Ron Rivera, probably better than any coach in the NFL, knows Cam Newton and knows maybe his injury situation and if he'll ever be able to come back. So that's number one. And number two is Cam Newton, the teams even want to bother trading anything for him? Maybe the Panthers don't have any leverage at all, and teams are just hoping for him to be released so that he ultimately is signed somewhere. But I do feel like Cam will get a spot somewhere. I just feel like teams are very scared right now because they're not able to work him out and not able to see what he actually has and how physically ready he is to participate this season. So there's a lot of factors there with Cam. Kyle Allen doesn't have those questions, and Kyle Allen is also a guy that Ron Rivera knows and knows him personally. So there's those effects to the deal. So that's my perspective on both of those moves. And I would say overall, Redskins, they don't get a starter here, but they get a young quarterback who started quite a few games. I would say at least 13 games, which is nearly a full season in the NFL. He's gone almost 500 as a starter. So he's had his promising moments, but he's also had some moments of weakness. And I think he's a quarterback that I would probably rank somewhere in the mid-tier backup range, not near the top, and also not as a near starter. So I don't think this is a guy that truly would replace Haskins, but he is enough to give him a little bit of a nudge. So that's my perspective on both moves. Nearly 100 people in this chat, guys. If you haven't already, Gronk spiked the like button, of course. And before I get to Travis Frederick and him just retiring out of nowhere, let's get to the chat real quick, but I'm going to check my phone in case anything else happened. I'm told Anthony Levine has agreed to a 1-year deal with the Ravens. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, Travis Frederick done. I can't believe that was crazy. That's crazy, man. Okay. Run CMC said Kyle Allen to the Redskins, though. Hot Take Hockey says, let's go. John, were you in the class earlier today? I don't think I saw you in there. Were you in there? Kev says, who the F is that? Hot Take Hockey says, I'm so hyped right now. I feel like Seahawks fans were just waiting for them to make any move. I feel like they could have signed like a veteran special teams player and they would have been happy. Vikings fan said 5th round pick. Sonny says, hello from Alaska. Wow, what's up, Sonny? Thank you for joining. Nick says, that's it. WTF. Kev says, who is that? David says, hey, Mitch. What's up, David? Graham says, Legion of Boom 2.0. Graham says, JK? I don't know what he said earlier, but... Oh, Legion of Boom 2.0 to JK. Okay. Troublemaker says... Or, sorry, I should say, Chauncey says, brother Mitch, I knew you'd come. What's going on, Chauncey? Run CMC says, damn, my Panthers should have just traded Allen for Dunbar straight up. Well, they didn't. I wonder how, if this was like in talks, you know what I mean? Like beforehand, the Redskins approached the Seahawks, or the Seahawks approached the Redskins, and they kind of worked it out beforehand. Johnny J. Grant says, Quinton Dunbar was ranked second out of 116 corners last year, and John Schneider gets him for a fifth. Good move. Nick says, leave CMC. Run CMC says, Seattle fleeced them. Nick says, PFF is high. He's a top 15 corner max. Oh, I want to get this out. I don't think he's an elite corner. That's just where PFF ranked him. I do think he's a good corner, though, and he's definitely a starting capable corner. And as I described in my analysis reaction initially, I do believe he'll push Trey Flowers for that job if they want him to play on the outside. And in the slot, he'll certainly be their best player in that position. So it's really up to what they do. Run CMC says, PJ Walker? Yeah, PJ Walker. Fire says, this is a steal. Hot Take Hockey's excited. He says, I'd be down with him over Flowers. Flowers was so inconsistent. I'd love to see him outside and Griffin in his usual spot. Seahawks fan says, Tedrick Thompson is the guy that's being traded. McLovin is in the chat. Celebrity alert. It was Tedrick Thompson, but he's trash, and there's no chance anyone actually gives a pick for him. Okay. Kay says, hi, Mitch. I agree. The Seahawks' safety position last year was pretty bad. Might have been their main reason their secondary was bad. Jeremy says, Tedrick Thompson. Hot Take says, Flowers makes huge plays sometimes, but he's inconsistent. He says he loves Griffin's potential. He really took a huge step, especially at the end of the year. James Glenn says, our defense is talented players, but our DC is trash. Well, the problem with the Seahawks defense, I feel like, is they've been playing this scheme for so long that teams have, like, they understand it so well and they know how to attack it so well. So the thing with Seattle is I think they need to be a little bit more creative and open up the amount of things they do. Not just do the same things that they always did. You know, you could do it in 2013, 2014, and all that because, one, Seattle had an amazing defense with incredible players, but number two, offenses weren't exactly used to that type of defense yet, and they hadn't cracked the code, so to speak. But I would say ever since 2015, Seattle's defense has been average or worse every year. And I feel like it's gotten worse every year because offenses have better understood that defense as the years have gone on. And I feel like adjusting it from a scheme perspective would actually help the talent out a lot. But obviously the talent hasn't been the same. I mean, you didn't have Earl Thomas or Cam Chancellor or Richard Sherman or Michael Bennett, and the list goes on, right? So you didn't have those guys in their prime. Hot Take says, yes, Mitch, literally Flowers is so trash. Man on man sometimes. LMAO. Laugh my ass off. Griffin and Dunbar will probably be a good man on man combo if they're both on the outside. Yeah, I've always liked what I've seen from Griffin and man from when they do play man. I feel like he's not bad there. James says, we still need a nickel. And Heath says, we got a nickel. Run CMC says, they value Dunbar and Kyle Allen the same with a laughing face. Charles Harrison says, Mitch, you've been giving good marks to the Seahawks lately. Yes, that's correct. I'm a little bit more pro Seahawks. And again, you know, for the people that thought I was negative on the Seahawks last year, or before the year specifically, even a little bit during the year, it was just because I was just giving you my opinion. Again, as the more that you'll watch me on these videos, the more you'll realize this is just my opinion. It's nothing to do with bias or anything like that. And we'll continue to get the I hate Drew Brees comments, but, whatever. But it's with the Seahawks, or with any team, I really feel like it's just the way that I see the team. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong, but you just have to understand it's just my opinion. It's not bias. It's not that I hate the team. I don't hate any team. I'm just giving you my straight up thoughts, and I'm not going to lie just so you guys can hit the like button. You know what I mean? Atlanta fan says, Mitch going to talk about Travis Frederick's retirement? Yes, I will in a sec. Are we going to re-sign Clowney? I would say you're the favorite, but I don't know. Kevin Durkant incorrectly puts Trey White over Gilmore. Deshaun Drakeford said Seattle going to be good in the backfield. Kevin Durkant says the Lions trade with us for Tua and the Giants get Chase Young. Bold predictions from Kevin Durkant. Whoa Willie says we could sign Griffin and Clowney if we cut Britt and Dixon. Ooh, I feel like Dixon will be cut because you have so many tight ends. Seahawks are greater than the 49ers. Screw Richard Sherman, says John. What else? Robert says, let's talk Seahawks. I've been talking Seahawks for a while, but hopefully that filled you in. Dion Lewis went to the Giants. Okay, I'll give you quick thoughts on that. I would say this. I think that's actually not a bad move. I didn't see the contract, but what Dion Lewis can offer you is a little bit like what Saquon can offer you at a lesser degree. So Lewis is a really shifty running back, which is the strength of Saquon as a runner, and he's great out of the backfield as a receiver, and I think he's instantly the most talented backup they have on the roster. So I just think he's a really good backup for whether Saquon is tired or Saquon is hurt. I feel like Lewis could play a game or two as a starter, or he could play those times that Saquon isn't out there. And what Lewis also offers is a little bit of versatility, not only as a receiver and a runner, but also as a pass blocker, and also as a guy that's been used to playing in systems with, Patriot type of coaches, right? So he's played for Belichick, he's played for Vrabel. I think he understands what Joe Judge will want, and I'm sure that was part of the decision there to sign Dion Lewis. But I like Lewis. I've always liked Lewis. I don't think he's what he was maybe in his prime with New England, but I do think he's still a good backup at the very least. So there you go. Adam says, what's up, Mitch? What's up, Adam? Kevin Durkant says, Drew Brees. What about Drew Brees? Clowney needs to stop the BS and take the $18 million. Derrick Henry is re-signed. Hot Take says, Mitch, do you hate the Seahawks more or Drew Brees? That's a good question because I hate neither. But if I had to choose just to keep my rep, I will say that I hate Brees more just to keep the rep up. I did have somebody comment the other day. I'm not sure his name. I don't remember his name. But he was ranting about how I was wrong about the Saints and blah, 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 and all this. So shout out to that guy. John P. says Washington got a fifth for Dunbar. That's it. Whatever. I'm an Eagles fan, so good riddance, Dunbar. I thought he looked good, to be honest. Yes, I agree, John, and he did look good from all accounts, and all statistics tell you he did look good. So your eye test was correct, John. Sonny says if Clowney wants to be with an elite defense, go to the Bills. I'm not sure if actually the Bills can afford him at this point after all the signings they've made, but I don't know. Maybe they can. I just feel like after all the defensive lineman signings they've made at this point, I don't know if Clowney really makes sense, but chat thoughts on the new Rams logo. It looks horrible. It looks like a morning TV show's logo. It looks like something out of Anchorman as a parody of the show. Like, that's how bad it looks at times on there. They have like 3 or 4 logos, don't they? I saw the main one, and I saw all of them, but I wonder how they're going to use all of them. What about Josh Gordon? Will he play and where? I think if he plays, he'll play in Seattle. Will he play? I'm hoping he is able to get back to being fine as a person, because I understand that everyone's just going to say, it was weed, it was weed, it was weed. But if you actually look into it, the last 2 times he's been suspended, part of it was because he was using steroids. So that's a bigger factor. I think if he does come back or isn't reinstated, I think it's because he gets like half the season suspension. Probably. That would be my guess. You think the Lions get Everson Griffin? I don't know if he really fits the scheme perfectly, but they do still need an edge rusher. So I would say an edge rusher would be nice for their team, whether it's Everson Griffin or somebody else. Honestly, they should be in on Clowney. If they're not, I would say that he would be a good fit for them, but don't know if they can afford him. Sonny says, by the way, the Eagles are going to dominate the NFC East and love the Slay trade and signing. Will Penny start? I think they'll split time. I like Carson as well. I think they're going to split pretty consistently throughout the season. Charles says, we respect your opinion, Mitch. That's why we come here, and it makes sense to stir the pot once in a while for your own channel. Thank you, Charles. But there are some haters out there. I'm saying this more not for the subscribers, because they understand for the most part, but for the people that are just tuning in for the first time because they don't get the perspective. But yeah, Joel says, we need to trade Chris Carson because we can't afford him next year. Browns fan says Seahawks aren't getting Clowney and Griffin while Browns are out here with $48 million. Doug says, Mitch, it's March Madness NFL style. It's madness. That's what it is. Did something else happen here? No. But Josina Anderson did tweet that Quinton Dunbar seems poised for a pay raise eventually. Seattle will be a new start and opportunity for him on several fronts. All right, let's talk about Travis Frederick. You've waited for long enough, so let's talk about that. Let's just look at Dallas's depth chart, because honestly, this is a big thing, kind of a shocker out of nowhere. Don't know how this is going to affect them. Joe Looney started 2 years ago, I believe, for 16 years. 16 games, I want to say. Okay. Joe Looney. Yeah, he started 16. Okay. Right. Travis Frederick has retired. The longtime Pro Bowl All-Pro center of the Dallas Cowboys has decided to call it quits at only 29 years old. Now, Travis Frederick has had some injury and health issues in the past throughout his career. Last season, he missed the entire year. And now the Cowboys are kind of left in a shock, and an absolute shocker of kind of in a rough spot here at the center position. Do they end up going with Joe Looney once again, who started 16 games 2 seasons ago when Frederick was out? Do they decide to draft one high in the draft and replace Frederick with a younger player? Do they sign somebody in free agency to help compete there with Joe Looney? There's not going to be anybody out there of probably starting caliber in free agency any longer, because there were a limited amount at the beginning of free agency. You know, there's only really McGovern, maybe Ted Karras, a couple others, but not a lot. So Dallas is stuck in this tough spot. Maybe if he did retire, he would have preferred it would have been a little bit earlier, before free agency. But either way, you know, I feel for the guy either way. I feel like if it's his time, it's his time. We just saw this recently with Luke Kuechly as well. You know, another all-pro, borderline Hall of Fame player in Luke Kuechly retired for similar reasons, health reasons, mostly concussion reasons. At the center position, I've brought it up many times this offseason, but I do feel like it's a little undervalued. But the center position takes a lot more contact and takes a lot more head trauma than the average offensive lineman, specifically tackles. Like, we've seen tackles play a lot longer than interior linemen. Typically, interior linemen are a lot better coming out of the draft and as younger players, and they actually don't last as long as tackles because they're not taking the impact, they're not taking the physical contact, and also the head-to-head contact that you can't really avoid being a center. You can avoid it if you're a quarterback being sacked. You can avoid it with the enforcement on penalties for hits to the head if you're a receiver or running back, or you can help protect players. But at the same time, if you're a center, you're constantly hitting and slamming into big 300-pound defensive tackles, twists and linebackers who are running full speed at you, defensive ends who are coming at weird angles. So for centers and guards, it's very difficult to play late into your 30s. And for Travis Frederick, if he felt like this was the time for him to best retire, then I back it and I understand it. Last season, he wasn't quite the prime self. According to PFF, he ranked 15th. So last year, he was more of an average level center where he played almost nearly all the snaps for the Dallas Cowboys last year. But he wasn't at that same level because he was coming off missing a season. Before that, he was pretty much the best center in the league, or like number 2. It was like him or Kelsey for this entire decade. He was drafted in 2013. And basically from PFF got an elite grade every single year of his career. And was an All-Pro, was a Pro Bowler, all of that. And was a big reason for the success of DeMarco Murray, the success of Ezekiel Elliott, the success of the Cowboys offense, and the success of Dak Prescott and Tony Romo. So for Frederick, he was the leader of this offensive line. We did see a little bit of a dip for their offensive line last year when he didn't play, obviously not just because of his talent, but also because he's the center. And centers are important, especially with quarterbacks that are a little younger. And I think this is going to put more pressure on Dak Prescott's plate for pre-snap adjustments, protections, all of that sort of stuff. Not that he wasn't doing it before, but it's going to be harder without your main man there. And I think he learned a little bit from last year as well. And it's going to hurt the continuity of one of the best O-lines in the league, because now you're replacing a guy that's a veteran that has a great relationship with Zach Martin and Tyron Smith and all the guys on the offensive line, and now you're going to be missing that. It's also going to hurt Ezekiel Elliott because you're not going to have that guy as a pulling lineman, as a blocker in front. It just hurts the entire offense. I saw it firsthand this year. I didn't think that would be the case, especially with my Patriots, because New England's been known to replace linemen at a rapid rate. But when it came to David Andrews this year, you saw a clear, significant drop in run production from Sony Michel or the other running backs. You saw a significant drop in terms of their pass protection for Tom Brady. So with these elite centers, like guys like Frederick or guys like Andrews, it does hurt your entire offense. It's going to hurt your rhythm. It's going to hurt your passing game. It's going to hurt your play action. It's going to hurt your protections. It's going to hurt all of it. So it's good at least that it happened now and not later, like in training camp. At least now they can find a guy in the draft that maybe they like, and they can now use that as a targeted position in the draft. But that also hurts the entire team, right? Because you're looking at the depth chart and okay, yeah, Frederick's gone. Maybe Joe Looney, we trust him enough to step in there if need be because he's done it before, right? That's fine. But maybe we wanted to draft a defensive end in the first round, and now we're not going to be able to because maybe we need to use it on the center. Or if we don't use the first on the center, maybe we use the second or the third, and maybe that impacts the corner position or the defensive tackle or whatever it may be for the Cowboys that they were looking to draft. And they had a plan this offseason, starting from the beginning of free agency and going into the draft, after the draft, where they kind of know what positions they want to target in the draft and what positions they want to target in free agency. And now that's kind of thrown everything out the window and made them go back to the drawing board. And I do wonder how long they've known this was going to happen. Was this a situation where they kind of knew that he was weighing his options, so they had to be prepared for it? Or was this out of the blue? So there's a lot of questions to be answered there. Travis Frederick had a fantastic career. Just taking a look back on what he did, I think I will say, like I already said, I mean, he was a huge reason that the Cowboys have been one of the most dominant running teams over the past 5, 6, 7 years that he's played. He was a Pro Bowler every season from 2014 to 2019. He was a one-time All-Pro in 2016. And he played 100% of the snaps in every single season he played, which is pretty crazy. So 2013 through 2019, excluding 2018, he did not miss a single snap for the Cowboys. So this was a tough guy. This was a guy that played through injuries and obviously was one of the leaders in the locker room. So a lot to replace there. 29-year-old Travis Frederick, early career retirement. But it happens, man. And it's happened to basically every team now in this generation. But you got to keep your health into perspective and your health in mind when you're a football player playing this type of sport. And Frederick is doing that in this case. So there you go. Frederick retires from the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to have to look to replace him in the draft. We'll have to see what happens. Okay. Travis Frederick, retired. Kevin Durkant says Dallas sucks. Atlanta Fed says, Mitch, how are you going to disrespect Alex Mack like that by not even putting him in the conversation? He's definitely in the conversation. It was off the top of my head, bro. Adam says, there's 88 people watching with 25 likes. Come on. See, Adam's the man. He knows, bro. Get that at least halfway. We should have at least 44 likes in here right now. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, Kelsey's great too, but he was one of the best centers in the game. Do you think Tom Brady is going to do good? You'll have to see. I'm making a video. Meet the Bucks, it's called. Will we get Bennett? Michael Bennett? Maybe. If he wants to resign there. I don't think he'll be too expensive. And I do think he would help your D-line. So if they want him back, it's up to them. I think he's from Texas. So that probably helps. Run CMC says, Mitch, how is New Orleans every year allowed to turn the salary cap off? Bro, I don't know. I'm the Saints hater, so I don't know. Joel says, opinion on the Pats getting rid of their kicker? Oh, yeah. I should bring that up. Oh, the Cowboys just signed somebody, by the way. Former Cowboys and Lions... Oh, sorry, never mind. 49ers signed somebody. Cowboys and Lions pass rusher Kerry Hyder is signing with the 49ers. Not a big name, but depth guy. Okay. All right, let's talk about Gostkowski real quick. So, I actually want to look at his stats because they're pretty staggering. I want to see where he actually ranks. I don't know. But this is a guy that's been playing forever. He's been playing since he was the second longest tenured Patriot. Other than Tom Brady. Let me see. Kicker points all time. Come on, Google. Give me a break. There he is. All right. The 12th leading scorer in NFL history for the kicker position has been released from the New England Patriots. Stephen Gostkowski, the all-time leader in New England Patriot points, is gone, has been released from the team, and the Patriots will look to replace him and his legacy in New England as a 3-time Super Bowl champion, appearing in, I'll say, 7 Super Bowls? What a lot of Super Bowls. 6 Super Bowls? So, Stephen Gostkowski, I mean, he's been a part of this Patriots team for a long time, since 2006, where he was immediately taking over for an absolute legend in Adam Vinatieri. And I don't think he's been looked at in the same regard as Adam Vinatieri because of the type of kicks that Vinatieri made and in the spots that he made them. But in terms of kickers of this generation, I think Gostkowski's at least in the top 5, if not the top 3. And probably of the last decade, he was right there alongside Tucker for, one of the best kickers of this decade. I do believe he held a record at one point for consecutive extra points as well throughout his career. And Gostkowski, I mean, All-Pro multiple times. 2008, he was an All-Pro where he made 36 of 40 field goals, which is 90%. He was also a All-Pro in 2015 where he made 91% of his field goals. And through 2013, 2014, and 2015, I mean, there was no better kicker in the league. He made 38 for 41 in 2013, which is 92.7%. 2014, he almost made 95% of his kicks, 35 for 37. He's consistently had a field goal percentage of above 90 throughout his career. He's had more than 5 seasons of a percentage over 90%. And this is also a kicker that's kicked a lot. It's not just like he's kicking a low amount. He was consistently the fantasy guy that you would pick for the Patriots. You know, number one, I'm picking Gostkowski because you knew he was going to be consistent. You knew he was going to get points because the Patriots would score points. And he consistently kicked it over like 30 field goals at the very least. He never kicked under that, really, outside of an injured season in 2007, I believe. Or in 2019 also. He was also injured. But I think that's part of the reason. So just talking about why he was released, we understand he's a legend, but at times, you know, the Patriots moved on from Tom Brady, right? They're looking to kind of, I don't want to say start fresh, but they're also looking to get younger in a lot of spots. And with Gostkowski, he was one of the highest paid kickers at his position. He's a little bit older. He's, 35 now? 35, 36 years old, which kickers can play until they're like 45 at this point, but the leg is going to dwindle. It's not going to be the same powerful leg that you had when you were 28 or 30. Like, that's just the way age goes. It happened with Vinatieri, and it's going to happen with Gostkowski, although you could argue Gostkowski hasn't been as great as of late. You know, checking the consistency, like 2018, 2019, when he played, weren't as great as the few seasons before. You know, he was judged a little bit harshly. He was put under a microscope a little bit more. The team was starting to bring in a little bit more competition. So you could see that, yes, Gostkowski's still a good kicker, but he's probably not the elite kicker that deserves to be paid what he was paid. So for that, plus the injury that he's coming off of, it only makes sense for New England to move on and to regain that salary cap and potentially draft a kicker or sign a kicker. And they've typically been good at finding kickers on the low, like Nick Folk last year, who actually played pretty well in replacing Gostkowski at the end of last season. So they could find a veteran like him. They could find maybe a diamond in the rough, or they could draft a young guy for a lot less on the dollar than Gostkowski. So when you have that elite kicker, like a Gostkowski, like a Tucker, it makes sense to pay them because they're consistent. You know that you can count on them. They have range. They have accuracy. They can kick in tough conditions, which Gostkowski did for his entire career in New England, a windy, cold place, rainy, snow, all of that. He also kicked in the playoffs. But the thing is, when you lose a little bit of that leg, you start to see that when you kick in the cold, the wind, the snow, the rain, it starts to be a little bit like a quarterback. If you lose your arm strength, you're not going to be able to kick or throw through that environment as well, as crisp, as accurate as you used to. A lot of this comes down to pure athletic ability. But I do mostly believe that this had to do with money, had to do with age, and had to do with uncertainty. But I did believe that they were probably going to keep him and bring in competition and see if training camp he wasn't the same guy, then you release him. And I almost wonder if they were better off doing that, or if they want to get out ahead of this, draft a guy, whatever, and get some salary to use elsewhere in free agency right now, because they're a little bit more tight against the cap right now than they have been in previous seasons. So it makes sense in that regard. So Gostkowski, absolute legend of the Patriots, and I thank him for his time for the team. He's been kicker for the Patriots for as long as I can remember. I've seen, I want to say, almost every single one of his kicks, and that's no exaggeration. He was so consistent. He was so level-headed. He wasn't a big personality, but a great dude, and led one of the best special teams for a number of seasons. So Gostkowski, thanks for being a Patriot. And I do believe that wherever he goes, he's going to help that team. And we'll see if he goes to a team like the Bucs, who possibly could use a kicker and follow Tom Brady. But there are a lot of teams out there that are contenders that I feel like could use Gostkowski, and he would be an upgrade for a lot of other teams. Probably won't get the money that he was getting in New England, but will get money nonetheless. So Gostkowski released from the Patriots, and those are my thoughts on him leaving New England. Could I see Cam to the Falcons? No, they have Matt Ryan. It doesn't make sense. Leg. Who's the best middle linebacker in the NFL? I think it's Bobby Wagner. Probably. I sound British? Wow, okay. All right, guys. Well, I think I'm going to end it there. I just wanted to get the quick reactions out and all my thoughts. But thank you guys for tuning in. I do have a video coming soon that I want to get out within the next couple of days, just currently doing the research for it. But I'll probably be doing quite a few like Tampa Bay related videos, because I feel like a lot of the NFL fans out there don't know anything about the Bucs. But now that Brady's been signed there, they're going to become one of the most relevant teams in the league. So I'm going to make a couple videos on the Bucs, and the first one is going to be Meet the Buccaneers, which is going to talk about like their strengths, their weaknesses, what I think they can do this season, why I think maybe Tom Brady will be successful there, and some of their underrated players, some of their overrated players, just talking about the team and just giving you analysis on the team and all their players. So yeah, that's the first video coming out, and I'll continue to grind and think of ideas. But if you guys also have any ideas, don't hesitate. Follow me on Twitter at Mitch Milani right there, as it says below. Tweet me, let me know your ideas, or mention them in the Discord if you've joined the Discord. Any ideas you have for me going forward to make some videos. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. It's been Mitch. Peace out.